You're very welcome. But before we go into today's business, if you were asked what Cleanearth is about, what would you say? And so to make sure that we make sure you don't leave this session without knowing firsthand what we are about, we have this wonderful video from our CEO himself, Eko Archer, to elaborate on what we are about for just some few minutes. And so technical team, can we have Cleanearth at a glance so that our audience knows what Cleanearth is about after this session? Thank you.
Welcome to Cleanearth. My name is Eko Archer and I'm the Chief Executive Officer over here. I'm excited about the work we're doing for industrial clients and the impact we're making on society. In the last 2.5 years, we have evolved from the business that started some 27 years ago. Today, we're truly a clean technology company and delivering a lot of services around sustainability and the environment. Whether you have needs around water, clean energy, ESG, or broadly the environment, we are the one-stop shop that you can come to get those issues addressed. We're excited about the team we have put in place, strong diversity, a lot of women over here leading a lot of projects, and a lot of individuals who come out of universities and colleges right here in Ghana and bringing services that are world-class that can be found anywhere on the continent. What we want to see is that our clients, first of all, are sustainable, they're doing responsible production, and more importantly, they are profitable. So I invite you to visit our website, www.cleanearth.africa. You can find our email and our contact telephone numbers on there or anywhere on the internet. Thank you very much, and I invite you to be part of the work that Cleanearth is doing, which is improving the quality of life and safeguarding the planet.
Thank you so much, technical team, and thank you, Chief Executive Eko Archer, for this wonderful introduction. And by way of information, our Chief Executive is online. At a point, I believe he may say a few words to all of us. But bottom line, if you are asked what Cleanearth is about, at least you know we deliver bespoke solutions in environmental and sustainability, water and wastewater treatment, and we deploy clean energy solutions in Ghana and across the African continent. And our core mandate is to make sure that you are sustainable while maintaining profitability. Thank you very much for that. And so without taking any more time, we go straight into today's business. And by agenda, we are going to have 3 brief informative sessions. These sessions are to give those of us who may be new to ESG a brief idea on what sustainability reporting is all about and how you may go about it. It is so that the conversations, people are able to contribute meaningfully, whether you're already in the space or you are now seeking to be in the space. So the first informative session would be delivered by one of our own, who is an ESG analyst and the key member of the sustainability services team here at Cleanearth, in the person of Kate Markin. Now, Kate has in the last few months have been supporting us to deliver sustainability reports for clients. And one of the work has been one for the largest, arguably the largest beverage manufacturer in West Africa. We have also looked at ESMS enhancements for investment firms, as well as multiple sustainability initiatives. The work that Kate has been doing has literally had her to inculcate both IFRS S1 and S2, the GRI, UN Sustainable Development Goals, as well as local and international best practice regulations. So to have her tell us what sustainability reporting is about, what it takes to actually do a report, and all on the very, very brief high level format, so that we have other informative sessions. So Kate Markin, if you are on the call, let us have your very brief information.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for the introduction. I'm excited for today's conversation. I hope I'm very audible.
Yes, Kate, you are. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. So to move this conversation forward, we are going to look at what sustainability reporting is, the history or the story of sustainability reporting, who to report to, what to report, and then we look at the ecosystem of the sustainability reporting. At the end of this session, I will give you 4 strong reasons why you should write your sustainability report now. Next slide, please. Next. Thank you very much. So, as I said, it's going to be an exciting session. I have 3 fun facts about sustainability reporting that I want you to know about. The first, did you know that stock exchanges and governments are increasingly demanding these reports as a sign of financial credibility? The second of these fun facts is that nearly all top global companies, a whopping 96% of them, produce sustainability reports. And finally, 88% of consumers show increased loyalty to companies that report and advocate for environmental and social issues. Now, that's a lot to think about. Let's move on to the meat of today's discussion. Sustainability reporting, according to GRI, which you'll find out much more later about in this conversation, is the practice of measuring, disclosing, and being accountable for an organization's environmental, social, and governance performance. A sustainability report is an internal tool as well as an external tool for all your stakeholders, and it ensures that you are communicating your company impact. And then lastly, it shows both your current performance and your future sustainability goals. So all of that has to be in your sustainability reports. Now let's talk about the sustainability report story. In the early 1980s, everyone became more aware of the environment. There were a lot of oil spillages, a lot of accidents in the environment. And so governments began to put in structures in place to ensure that our environments are protected. And so that led to setting up of EPAs, etc. Then we moved to the 1990s. Companies now see it as a necessity, even though it was voluntary, to write environmental reports, basically for their image or for reputation reasons. And then in 2000, we find out that it's not only the environment that we want to concentrate on, we want to see how our company is affecting the society, and we want to even know more into the economic performance. And so we come up with GRI, one framework that was set up in the 2000s. Then 2010, things became more structured. We want to know everything about your environment, your social, and the decision-making in your entity. And then I call this the mandatory area because that's where we are in from 2019 going. ESG or sustainability reporting has become more mandatory. We can see it even in some jurisdictions that it has become a law that has been passed that entities must have these kind of reports. And slowly it's getting to us here in Ghana. So who writes a sustainability report? Here on this slide, you can see a list of large corporations and multinational companies, listed or public companies, financial institutions and investors, small and medium enterprises, government and public sector organizations, NGOs, and international organizations. I'm sure that at least we fall into one of these categories if you are on this call. Then we want to know who reads a sustainability report. First on the list is your investor. he wants to assess the risk and the long-term value in your company. Customers also read these reports to understand your ethical and sustainability practices. Your employees also want to know more about your company values. The government, which we cannot do away with, also wants to know how you are complying with laws that have been set for you. And the society that your entity exists in has to understand how you are impacting them. And so this is very important to note that a sustainability report is very tactical. You have to make sure that you are pleasing all these audiences at once when you have your sustainability report out. Yes. So now, what do you usually see in a sustainability report? I already mentioned that it speaks about ESG factors. So in the environment side of a sustainability report, you are going to find that an entity is describing their energy use and their efficiency, how they manage water, how greenhouse gases, how many of them they are emitting, and at the end of their value chain, the waste and resource management, how they manage all of that. For the social bits, they deal with their stakeholders inside and then the external stakeholders. So what the safety of the employees and also the impact that you're having on society. For the governance bits, we are speaking about decision-making here. We are speaking about board oversight and structure, ethics and compliance. And we also want to know how you are keeping our data, so data privacy and management. The sustainability reporting world is some sort of ecosystem. And so in this ecosystem, you are going to find frameworks that guide how to report, standards that define what should be in the report, protocol that shows you how to measure. Remember, we spoke about people calculating for their emissions. So there are methods that show you how to calculate for that. Then the regulations also aid in that bit. Then why are we doing this whole thing? The goal, remember that we are still in the era of pursuing the sustainability development goals. And so this ties in. And I put this phrase here that remember that it is an ecosystem, they are interconnected. All these parts are not silos, they work in collaboration. So I'm going to just give some examples of key frameworks. Here we find GRI, TCFD, Carbon Disclosure Project. We are going to speak more about it in the conversation. And then we also have key standards that show us what to report. So we have IFRS, S1, S2, SASB standards. And then in case your project or entity is funded by World Bank, you should be looking at reporting according to their IFC performance standards. And then maybe the African Development Bank, you also want to report according to their integrated safeguards. These standards ensure that what you are producing is consistent. Yes, and also allows for comparability. We can go on. Now, the protocols, one of the key protocols that you would meet when you're doing sustainability reporting is the greenhouse gas protocol that helps you to measure your emissions. Also with regulations, I can mention that EU is sort of leading in that regime, making it more national. And in Ghana, for our stock exchange, it's quickly becoming mandatory. Yeah. So I spoke about the sustainability development goals, and these goals help us as a company or as an entity to set targets, align with strategy, and make sure that we are communicating the right impact to investors, regulators, our customers, our communities. So I'm rounding up with 4 strong reasons why we should start sustainability reporting. The first is that it's a strategic and competitive advantage. It gives companies or entities increased competitiveness and growth. Whilst you are doing your sustainability report, you are going to find key areas that will allow you to innovate and be ahead of the market. To be investor ready and also align with regulations, when you are doing your sustainability report, you are always set for any investment requirements, and also you are aligning with regulations within your industry, within your country. And so all these things are in place. It also deals with things pertaining to risk management, your supply chain stability, and so forth. The second set of reasons why you should report. Next, please. Yeah. So this is very essential. Ensuring that you have operational efficiency and cost savings. The process of doing the sustainability report, you are going to do a lot of audits over your whole value chain. And doing these kind of audits year on year keeps you on top of your game. You are going to see where there are loopholes, where you can put things together to ensure that you are not wasting money and you are always efficient. Then last but not least is that companies that report sustainability have better workplaces for their employees, because employees know that these companies have my best interest at heart. Why do I go somewhere else? Sustainability reporting has proven to increase employee satisfaction and retention. So to conclude, I want you to keep in mind that sustainability reporting is now a strategic business tool, not just a compliance exercise. It drives transparency and accountability across ESG areas. Organizations must navigate a complex ecosystem of frameworks and standards, which we are going to speak of more in today's forum. And then reporting supports better decision-making, risk management, and value creation. The future is more standardized, more data-driven, and very mandatory. And so that is why this conversation is very key. So thank you very much. I'll hand over to Deborah. You can leave in any questions in the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you. And we are just getting started. So for now, you can put any question you have either in the Q&A or you write it down. We'll get into the very open forum, which is the spine of today's discussions. Now, one thing I have realized from Kate's presentation is it has moved through voluntary phases, and now the future shows that we are moving into mandatory areas, especially in Ghana and across the continent. But then if you are an early mover, then you stand to gain an advantage, because sustainability reporting forces you to look within and find out not just areas of compliance, but areas of opportunity. Thank you very much, Kate. We are going to take the second informative session, all to prime us up, especially for those who may not yet be in the sector, and for those of us in it, as for more information to guide your work before we enter the open forum. And so the next informative session is going to come from one of our very own, very, very popular on the TL. This person actually has experience across multiple sectors. It's amazing. And she's not even stopping. She's pursuing a second master's in sustainable transition for organizations' resilience management. So you have someone who is both on the front lines and even learning the European system for how their companies have been resilient in the face of the myriad of challenges. We are going to have Lydia Osei. I will not take much of anyone's time. So we are going to have Madame Lydia Osei give us the second next level informative session before we go into the open forum. Madame Lydia, if you're online, we'll take your session now. Thank you so much for making the time.
Okay, thank you so much. Hey, Dave, you can hype. Thank you so much, and I'm excited to be here. So I'll dive right into my slides, and then let me share my screen. Okay, so let me go here and then. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lydia Osei, as Debbie has introduced, and I'm truly excited to be part of this conversation. So today, just as Kate opened up, we are looking at sustainability reporting, but I will be looking at the implementation opportunities and then the strategic value aspect. So on today's agenda, I want the session to be as practical as possible. So today we'll start off with an introduction. Obviously, I'll try and explore the Ghana and Africa context. We'll look at sustainability reporting frameworks. I will not go very deep into it because Kate has also kind of mentioned it. Why bother? Why should we even care in the first place? So we'll look at the ESG business case first, and then we'll look at why sustainability reporting also matters. So we'll look at the business case aspect as well. And where to begin practically, we'll look at materiality. There's a process for, I've put together a process for where you can begin as an organization when it comes to sustainability reporting. Obviously, there are barriers to implementation that we'll try and explore, and with some, I'll say some solutions or actions to kind of manage it. And then we'll also look at the structure of a sustainability report. Just an overview of what your sustainability report should look like. And then ESG performance at a glance. Basically, I've put in a frictional ESG dashboard that we'll look at and kind of explore as well. And the risk of greenwashing, we can't talk about sustainability reporting without looking at greenwashing. So I have some phrases that we'll look at and why they are greenwashing and some of the ways you can better present that same information. And then a 90-day action plan, to leave you with more actions, a very clear roadmap to kind of see how you are also going to begin your journey. And then finally, we'll look at some final tips and then key takeaways. Now let's dive into it. Okay, so the African and Ghanaian context. Why sustainability reporting matters right now for Ghana and West Africa? I know that some of us kind of are confused or are still trying to catch up as to what is happening globally. There are lots of conversations around sustainability reporting, ESG. People are wondering, like we do reports. I know that since businesses started operating, there's been a bit of reporting going on already. So why is that? Why is it suddenly gaining a lot of traction? Like, what is the momentum about? So I'd like us to look at some 4 key insights. One, and why it matters, why it should matter to us. One is that 80%, according to KPMG survey 2022, 80% of the world's largest companies now report on sustainability. What does this mean practically? It means that these companies have what suppliers that they work with. And to report on sustainability, you need data. So they will definitely need some data from their suppliers or from the partners that they are working with. And if as an organization you are not ESG conscious, you do not have the right data to provide to these companies, at some point they are going to drop you. So it makes business sense for you to start structuring your processes and your operations to align with the global conversation on ESG. Secondly, we'll look at the Security Exchange Commission of Ghana. It also requires sustainability disclosure for listed companies. Why? Because ESG integration plays a very critical role when it comes to your equity, when it comes to equity pricing on the stock market. So like markets or investors are interested or are looking at investing in companies that are ESG conscious, because ESG also creates that risk management, or has it creates that risk management and makes your organization more like investor attractive when it comes to investment, right? So they want to make sure that they're investing in companies that are really that have integrated ESG into their operations, and they do not want any issue of ESG issues kind of or risk affecting the stock prices. So it's very, very critical. For example, if an organization has an emergency issue, maybe a fire has engulfed the operation, it's going to slow down business operation, which will, if the company is a listed company, it's also going to affect the market price. So investors are very, very critical into it. That is why SEC has also put that kind of barrier, or like they've kind of put that barrier to kind of manage that risk. And there's also the EU CSRD, as Kate rightly said, when it comes to regulations. EU is very, very big on sustainability. And if as an African supplier, you should really be concerned if you are not prioritizing ESG at this point. Because if you want to work with any European company, just know that whether you are supplying cocoa, textiles, whatever it is, just know that they are going to request a lot of ESG data from you. And even before they start thinking about working with you, they will definitely do their due diligence to make sure that you are a company worthy of doing that business with. Because at the end of the day, like I said, or like Kate rightly said, the future is data driven. So you need to have the data. And if they see that you're a company that will not give them that data to also support their reporting and enhance their ESG strategy, they are not going to work with you. And also after it's demanding ESG alignment for regional trade and access. When it comes to market, ESG is playing a very critical role in this area. So when it comes to markets, if you want to thrive on the market, when it comes to climate policies, policies also shapes ESG integration and all of that. So these are areas that I'll say that are driving the momentum around ESG reporting in companies, organizations, and as individuals, we need to be concerned about. Moving on, this is happening today. Okay, so moving on, when it comes to, okay, just a minute. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about what sustainability reporting is. It's basically about it's about the practice of disclosing your organization's ESG performance to stakeholders transparently and then consistently. How you do that, there are frameworks, there are standards to guide how you disclose this ESG performance. So GRI is the Global Reporting Initiative, and GRI simply talks about how environment, social, and then how your organizations contribute to these areas when it comes to environment, social, and then the economic aspect. So it's basically answering the question of how your organization is impacting, the environment, the social, and then the economic aspect. So this is where you boast about your impact. Oh, we've built schools, we've done trainings, So basically, that is GRI for you. And then the ISSB, IFRS S1, S2 is also looking at how climate and social risk is also affecting your business operations or affecting your financial bottom line as well. And then when it comes to the ESRS, is also looking at, I'll say, the combination of the two, the GRI as well as the IFRS S1 and S2. So the ESRS or the ESRS actually looks at what we call the double materiality. So it's looking at it from two-way street, how your organization is impacting the environment, the social and then the economic aspect, and also how these areas are affecting your business or shaping how you run your business. So these are things you need to be mindful of. And when it comes to GHG protocol, is also a voluntary standard for reporting our emissions. The UN Sustainable Development Goals, you cannot do sustainability reporting without integrating it into your report. So this an area that we need to also be mindful about. And then when it comes to TSFD, it's also looking at your climate risk and then opportunities. So these are critical frameworks and standards that we need to be mindful of when it comes to sustainability reporting. Okay, so why do ESG? There's a slide I put in because you can't do sustainability reporting without doing ESG. You get it. You need to implement something. You need to have some systems in place. You need to be doing something to be able to report on it later. So ESG is simply how I'll say you run your business. So why does it matter? One, it helps you be able to identify and manage your risk. So let's say your climate, water, your labor, governance risk, they are all business risk, and identifying them early also prevents your company from costly surprises and then long-term or continuity. So it shields your business against any form of risk. And then resilience and survival. Having a good ESG system in place also better prepares you for environmental and social dependencies such as climate shocks, regulatory shifts, supply chain failures, and all of that, because you have a system in place. And then when it comes to talent and culture, now next generation of professionals, we want to work with organizations that are big on sustainability, because the mindset is that when a company is big on sustainability and ESG, then they think about their employees. Then there's that system in place to ensure there's that talent retention as well. So these are something we need to be mindful of. When it comes to access to capital, which is I'll say that was one of the strongest drivers when it comes to ESG integration. You can't get access to any capital now without any form of ESG integration happening. So you need to start now. And as an organization, you definitely need an investment one way or the other to move your business operations forward. So if you want to do that, then this is your time for you to start integrating ESG into your operations. And when it comes to competitive advantage, just like I talked about before, when it comes to supply chain, if you want businesses, you need to have a good system in place. Companies want to work with organizations that have good ESG management systems in place. And if you want your organization to really have that competitive advantage, this is one way to have that advantage as your one way to have that advantage. And then long-term value creation. ESG is not a cost, it's an investment. Okay, so if you are looking at your business continuity, if you are looking at staying in business for a very long time, then you need to start integrating ESG into your operations. It goes beyond cost. It goes beyond cost. It gives you value as an organization. It attracts capital to you. It enhances your reputation on the market. Okay. Now we understand why we need to do ESG. Now, why should you report on it in the first place? I've put in a point that you can only report credibly on ESG if you are actually doing it. So ESG, I know by now, all of us know ESG. That's why I've not explained it so much, but it's basically environment, social, and governance. So reporting without substance is equal to greenwashing, which we'll look at. And substance without reporting is a missed opportunity. Now, I want to see in the comment section, why do you think substance without reporting is a missed opportunity? Let's see, on top of your mind, why do you think it's a missed opportunity? It's also a way for us to engage with one another. In terms of the opportunities that reporting brings us, one is the regulatory requirements. Now we know about the stock exchange rules, the GSE listing rules, the Bank of Ghana, all of them, they are moving towards what mandatory ESG disclosure. So you don't want to be left behind. Okay, you don't want to be left behind. This is the time for you to start, preparing the foundation and to start, gathering the data. Just like Kate rightly said, the future is data driven. And also, secondly, you need to report because it also gives you that access to investor and then lenders, right? Evidence. Investors, they want to, and your lenders, they want to see evidence of your claims. You are saying you're ESG conscious. What does that mean practically? And even before they invest, they do their due diligence, or check your website, or read your reports. They need to see, what exactly are you doing, and whether you are a good investment to them or not, whether you're a risk or you are going to be an opportunity, whatever it is. So we need to also look at them supply chain requirements, especially when it comes to dealing with the EU. And there's the supply chain and due diligence requirements, and you need to be integrating ESG in your operations to be able to kind of have that broad that cross-border collaboration when it comes to business. And then accountability and trust. So reporting also commits you to targets publicly. We'll look at some of the things that goes into reporting, but you need to get over that mindset that you need to report only on your achievements, on all the nice things that you are doing, or to build accountability and trust. So most of the reports that I've read, they put in some commitment in them. When your stakeholders read it, you are held accountable, because when you publicly disclose that they are going to maybe achieve net zero by 2040 or by 2050, then your stakeholders are expecting a bit some actions. They're expecting you to have they're expecting you to work towards that. They want to see actions, they want to see results, they want to see key learnings. So it's not just about talking about your achievements and all of that. And that also builds trust, because you are being transparent as an organization. And then benchmarking and then improvement. You cannot manage what you do not measure. That is the fundamental. If you are not measuring something, you wouldn't know its impact. You wouldn't understand the trend. You wouldn't know what to change and how to improve. So reporting ensures that you get data. It ensures that data is all collated. And that data collection is a different issue altogether. And if you're able to start your data collection early, you're able to understand the trends, you're able to understand your consumption patterns, it helps you to do better. It helps you to, because just like Kate said also, when you start collecting this information, you are able to put in some systems in place to improve. And that is the whole point: improvement, continuous improvement, or continual improvement. And then we have the reputation and then differentiation. If you want to be different, if you want to have the competitive advantage, if you want to enhance reputation, then do ESG. Basically, do ESG. In Ghana's market, a credible sustainability report is still rare. So if you want to be different, start publishing one really signals what maturity and then seriousness as well as leadership. So don't wait to have everything in place before you start your report. You can start from where you are, put in some commitments, put in some targets, and put in some specific actions, and then you would be able to have a very good value from your sustainability report. So you're doing sustainability is as important as your reporting. And what you do not report, people do not even know that this company exists. So you need people to know you, you need people to see you, you need people to commend you, you need people to see value within your operations, and you can communicate that extensively through your sustainability report. Hope I've been able to convince you as to why you need to start thinking about creating your first sustainability report. Now, where to begin? That's the question that most of us ask. Where do I begin from? The first step is materiality assessment. You need to know what matters most to your business and your stakeholders. You need to know what your key material topics are. So I've put in a step here. You need to map up your stakeholders, list them, identify their needs and then their expectations and all of that. Then you go to your topics, your environmental topics. What are your key environmental topics? Maybe climate change, emissions, whatever it is, water, labor, energy, community, or supply chain. You need to list your topics and then you map them. Okay, so you list your environmental topics, you list your social as well as your economic aspect. And basically, these topics, I'll say that they are more like your risk. And as an organization, as you're operating, you know your environmental risk. Maybe you have effluent discharges, you have some emissions, you have noise, whatever it is, you need to map them out within the 3 areas. Then you assess the impact. So you rate each topic based on what the business impact as well as what's the stakeholder the stakeholder concern to help you to know what issues should you really should you really prioritize. And then after you've assessed your impact, obviously you'll have a list of topics that are material to you. Then you prioritize them, you focus on the high impact, high concern issues, and then you select a framework of what disclosing these results. You can use the GRI, the ISSB, but we always recommend that if you are starting out your sustainability report, then you need to start with the GRI. So if you're a business leader on this call and you want to start your sustainability reporting journey, I'll say that you need to empower your sustainability team. You need to train them on the GRI to help them understand what goes into it. And the GRI also has key material topics on environment, social, and then the governance. So you can it has already been done for you. So you just look at the material topics and see which one, aligns very strongly to your organization based on your own internal analysis as well as that of your stakeholders input as well. Now we have barriers to implementation. So this one critical area for us being able to where to begin. You begin from your materiality assessment. So that is one. Now, barriers to implementation. Obviously, when you start your journey, we've all heard if you're a sustainability professional, you've obviously heard some of these things before. We don't have data, leadership isn't convinced, no internal capacity. There's always one excuse or the other. So these are some of the barriers that can really impact your sustainability reporting journey. So when it comes to we don't have data, you need to start with what you have. Okay, you need to start with what you have. So obviously, when you are doing energy, you have electricity bills. You get electricity bills. So you start with what you can manage or what you can have based on your material topics, please. Because the material topics in your sustainability reports, you can't put everything in there. So there are certain areas that you focus. There are certain topical issues that you focus on in your report, and others that you just highlight. You don't have to give it more attention because it is really not material to you, but for the sake of transparency, you kind of communicate it to your stakeholders. For example, let me give a practical example. For example, I'll say that maybe carbon emissions is a material topic to you, but in terms of your operations, water usage is not critical to you, it's not material. Right, you can indicate both. You talk about your carbon emissions, what you are doing, your commitments, blah blah blah. Maybe on maybe at the footer, or you can create like a caption or a box where you indicate that, or maybe water usage, though it's maybe environmental impact from your operations, not material to you. Hence, maybe you're not reporting on that, So it's more about being transparent. But honestly, when it comes to your data, you need to start from where you have, and what you have. And the leadership isn't convinced. Always leadership is not convinced at some point, but you always need to also link it to your business drivers. Recently, when we did a course on sustainable finance, I think we talked about MPV, and that is when I realized that sustainability professionals, we need to also understand the business knowledge, or we need to understand like the business aspects when it comes to our initiatives. Because when it comes to, for example, climate initiatives, they are very, very expensive. And sometimes it's not like your leadership, they don't want to do the solar project that you are talking about. Maybe they've done, their finance team have put together like the cost benefits, or they've done their own analysis to see the profitability of the project, and based on the data they have, based on the formula that they have used, they realize that going into this project will not be economically or financially feasible to them at this point, So sometimes we also need to, and then once maybe they've said that, but it doesn't mean that you have to give up, Maybe it could be that, for example, it could be that the supplier rates are too expensive. So maybe you can also look at other alternatives to see, because at the end of the day, there should be a balance. Sustainability is also about the balance between the environment, the social, and then the economic aspects of it. So I saw a post on LinkedIn where the person said that as a sustainability professional, you don't lead any initiative with it. It's good for the planet. No. So you need to learn the business language, the risk reduction, the share price impact. If your business is listed, tell them the language they understand when it comes to sustainability, and then the balance, so that they are able to also get on board with it. And then the fear of reputational risk or disclosure. This is a real risk that actually people have, or business leaders have, that they may report something and people will scrutinize it, and before they realize they're all over the news for this, that. But no, that is not the whole point of reporting. Reporting is being transparent, and transparency also builds trust as well. And if you report it, obviously, if you are going to say something negative, or if it's not negative, if you are going to even highlight an opportunity for improvement, I also call it an opportunity for improvement for a reason. It means that whatever maybe downside you have, there should be like a plan to manage, that aspect. So if, for example, you reported that maybe you had some incidents or whatever, maybe an incident was you exceeded your targets for the year, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you've indicated it in your report, whatever it is. There should be a plan. What is the plan to, manage it? It's not just about wording. It's about smart actions, like specific action. We are going to do X, Y, Z by this time, so that at the end of the day, they can match your effort to whatever issue that is. No internal capacity or expertise. So you need to have somebody championing sustainability, somebody gathering the data, and it's not just about, you need to also empower the capacity and then the competence of the people. And this is very, very critical as well. And if you do not have the internal capacity to do it, you can always hire a consultant. There are so many consultants out there. Cleanearth is a consultant. They can help you, and they can also provide that what's it called, the staff competence training for you. So it's not just about giving you documents upon documents, it's about also building the internal capacity to manage this as well. It's too expensive. Sustainability is expensive, yeah, but it has value. We talked about the long-term value. We've talked about the positioning. We've talked about the impacts, the risk management, and all of that. So the concept of expensive, really, I think it's relative. We need to look at what really is expensive. And if there are things that you can negotiate, if there are prices that you can negotiate, you do that as well. But you can, when it comes to reporting, you can also start with a very simple integrated report. If you don't want to pay a consultant very huge amount of money for reporting, you can start small. Start small. It's like, tell a story of where your business is as far as ESG is concerned, and make it colorful. When it comes to sustainability reporting, it needs to be colorful. If you give us a Word document with no colors, people will not read. So give us some colors, red, green, yellow, so that your report is very lively, and then people can also will be interested to read it and things like that. And then frameworks are too complex. Yes, frameworks are too complex. It's true, but capacity building is very critical. And then you can always start with the GRIs in accordance. When it comes to GRI, we have in reference and then in accordance. So if you are following the GRI's protocol from start to finish, it's in reference. But then if you are looking at, maybe you are not following everything, but you are taking some aspects from GRI reporting standards, you can use the in accordance. So you can start from that in accordance, then gradually you move to in reference when you have good system in place and when leadership buy-in is there. what does the sustainability report look like practically, right? So the reporting basically was like what we know. We start with the W, the 5 Ws: what, why, when, where, how. Like all of these are kind of why they are all integrated kind of in your assessment. They are answering that particular question in different ways and from different angles, right? So we start with who you are. Obviously, when you're starting with your report, people need to know you. So we need to know about your organization. We need to know about your values, your mission, your vision. This is where your CEO message comes in and all of that. So that's one needs to happen. And then your governance and ethics, who is who, then who is coordinating your internal processes, who is giving that leadership, who is providing that leadership accountability when it comes to your ESG integration within the company. So your board, you need to highlight them. They should be there. Who is their CSO? Who is this? Who is that? All of these are critical in your sustainability report because you are telling a particular story. And governance gives ownership. It gives that ownership and trust that okay, there are leaders who are into this, who are committed to this, right? And then we have the materiality assessment summary. Your topics, your environmental, social topics that you identified, right? Who was consulted, who are the stakeholders, what is material to you. All of these need to be explained in your reports. And then you come to environmental performance, and then you look at your social performance, your GRI content table or disclosure table. So the GRI material topics, they have like a code for each of them, maybe GRI 102, GRI 103. So all of these need to be, what's the code? They need to be displayed in your sustainability report if you are using GRI as well, and then your targets and then your future commitments. Now I've put here a very beautiful dashboard. This is just, I'll say, ESG performance at a glance. So we are saying that there should be timelines. Like your reporting must be smart. Okay, and when it comes to what to report, for example, we have what we call the achievement targets and then opportunities for improvement. If you want to start, okay, just have that in mind. Your achievements. What are your achievements in this area? What are the targets in this area? What are the opportunities for improvement in this area? What are the timelines for execution? All of these need to be displayed in your report. So environment, for example, you say, 12%, this is just a frictional dashboard. It's not real. But then I just want to provide us with a practical view of it. So for example, let me go to even the detailed one. Yes. So when we look at environment, maybe if I identified your material topics, energy and climate, water and waste, and then biodiversity, and then land. These are your material topics that you've identified. Now, what did you do? Maybe in the year, the boundaries within the year that you reported, you said, we've completed a baseline energy audit. We've done solar panels, 2 facilities now, 80% solar powered, GHG emissions, inventory, scope 1 and scope 2 established with annual tracking. So this is some of the achievement that you've had within this particular material topic. Now you have a target. All new facilities to be solar ready, maybe by a certain target. So this one is short term, so within 1 to 2 years. You can see the timelines here. So within 1 to 2 years, maybe this is your targets that you want all your facilities to be solar ready. And in terms of your medium term, you're looking at 30% reduction in scope 1 and scope 2 emissions versus 2022 baseline. 2022 baseline simply means that you have data for 2022 baseline as far as your emissions is concerned. So you are comparing it to it. So the reduction, you're able to track what has really changed from 2022 to the reporting year clearly when you have good data serving as your baseline. And then opportunity. So scope 3, you said that was scope 3 supply chain not yet measured. Maybe you'll begin next year and you don't have any renewable energy certificates in place yet, and your energy management system is not yet implemented. If I see this, I know that, this company is very transparent. Even as a sustainability person, if I see some of these opportunities in your sustainability report, I'll start monitoring your what's it called, your careers website, because your because like that means that there's a gap that you need somebody to fill, right? Or you can even write to the people directly, to the employer or whoever directly, that, oh, I read your report, I realized that you, in terms of your gaps, blah, 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 this is what I can deliver to close this. It's just about opportunity. So when it comes to a sustainability report, as much as it has its benefit, it also has a lot of opportunities in it as well. So if you are somebody looking for a sustainability role, maybe you can start reading the reports of organizations. You might see an opportunity in there. And then when it comes to water and waste, for example, these are some of the achievements. They've put together some targets and opportunity for improvement as well. So this is clear. You can see that it's not just about the nice things that they are doing, but they have also their downsides as well. But they have a system in place. So in a report like this, you also need to include some action. So if you say scope 3 not measured here, we'll begin next day. What does this mean practically? Are you going to send some data, some supplier checklist, data checklist to your suppliers to get their data? What exactly do you mean by we'll start measuring? So all of these need to reflect in your sustainability report. This social aspect as well. So social aspect, maybe if you identified your key social issues, health and safety, diversity and inclusion, then community and livelihood. So you have your achievement. They are saying that 0 fatalities, third consecutive year with no lost life incident. All staff have completed with mandatory HNS induction, safety management aligned to maybe ISO 45001. What are your targets short term? Or you want to have mental health first aiders in every department. So your targets, your commitments, you don't need to have a net zero, achieve net zero by 2040 commitment to start writing a report, your sustainability report. No. Start from somewhere. The whole point, start from somewhere. The achievement that you think they are not so significant, they are. At the end of the day, is the impact, that matters. Let people know you. Let people see who you are as an organization through your reports, okay? And then we'll look at the governance. So governance, you can see board and leadership. Maybe if I identified your issues, board and leadership, ethics and compliance, as well as transparency and reporting. So in your achievements, you are saying that, board ESG subcommittee established with quarterly meetings. So there's a huge improvement. Now there's an oversight, there's an ESG specific accountability. So this one is a very good achievement for your organization. All board members completed ESG awareness training. It's not easy to have all your board members sit for 2-hour, 3-hour ESG awareness training. Awareness is very short, but when it comes to the detailed one, it can be a whole day. So there's a very significant issue. It tells me that, the board is interested. If you are working with such an organization, you will not go back and forth on energy audit. They will simply understand why they need to do the energy audit because it's for the business as well. Let's just by the way. And then there's the ESG performance linked to executive remuneration, 10%, so that, there's board accountability to this ESG. So when I'm reading a report like this, I want to work with such a company because I know that I will not burn out. I'm just kidding, but I'm trying to say that there's that oversight, there's that leadership to it. And then there's the target as well. You publish your board skills matrix, including ESG competency. Maybe there's a target for you. And then you want to have at least 40% women on your board. So all of these things, you don't just put it down and leave it. There should be some actions to reflecting what exactly you're going to do to achieve this, all in your report. Like your report should just tell a story. We want accountability. I can't hold you accountable if you don't put anything. If you talk about your achievement, how do I hold you accountable? So these are just some areas for us to look at. Now, the risk of greenwashing. We can't talk about sustainability reporting without talking about greenwashing because we've seen how some companies have been fined in the EU a significant amount of money for greenwashing. So greenwashing is basically making misleading or unsubstantiated claims about your environmental or social performance. There are some common greenwashing flags. So we have what we call the vague claims. We are eco-friendly. What does we are eco-friendly mean? With no data. when you say that we are eco-friendly, we are committed to sustainability, what does that mean in practice? So you need to explain it. You need to be very transparent in your reporting so that you save yourself from the risk of greenwashing. Maybe that is why some companies fear reporting, because they're afraid that it will be they might face the risk of greenwashing. No. If you want to report but you're afraid that maybe you may face the risk of greenwashing, have a third party assure the data, your information for you. Okay, so that's even the third party assurance gives your report more credibility. Okay, so there's that aspect as well. And we have the cherry picking only positive metrics and they're hiding the negative one. So your report is full of achievements. We've done this, we've done that, nothing to kind of highlight some of the downsides, to also show progress, to show continual improvement. And then there's the impressive targets with no baseline or accountability. So the aspect that you need to set smart targets with measurable baselines, and then using misleading labels or certifications. If you don't have ISO, you don't need to talk about. If you are now getting the ISO, you've not gotten the certificate yet, you don't need to put in your report that we are ISO certified. Wait, let's get the certificate first, and then you know that, oh, we are ISO certified. Try and make sure that there's and then we have you get third-party assurance on your key metrics. Third-party assurance now, when it comes to EU reporting, they require that third-party assurance as well. We need to ensure that your data is credible. So, and then we have the carbon offset. So we have something like the EcoVadis. Yeah, that gives the ESG scores. This company is gold, this company is silver, this company is that. It also kind of serves.
Lydia, are you online? Lydia, are you online? I believe you are wrapping up very quickly, so that we move on to the next, and I believe it's just some technical challenges resolved in the next few seconds, and then Lydia would wrap up for us to continue. Lydia, are you online? I believe it's just a
Can you hear
technical
me?
challenge. Yeah. So Lydia is back online. She will be quickly wrapping up, and then we continue the session. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Okay, so I'm sure we heard about the greenwashing parts, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll just move on to my last but one slide. Then we are done. Sorry. Okay, so basically it is a 90 days. So we understand the greenwashing aspect. So you need to back your claims with what data, basically. And then there's the 90-day, I've put together a 90-day sustainability reporting action plan foundation. Foundation is when you set the scope, right? You get a leadership buy-in, you assign a sustainability person, you map your stakeholders, you conduct a rapid internal ESG audit to know what data you currently have. And then the assessment is when you complete a materiality assessment with your stakeholders so that you know your material topics and then what to focus on when it comes to your reporting. Then you select your reporting framework, is the GRI, which is highly recommended for first timers. But if you have some investor expectations or regulatory expectations to align it according to any other framework, you need to align it to that. And you define your reporting boundary and then the period. What does it include? Is it the whole organization, whatever it is, you need to, the time period, is it for 2022, 2024, that kind of thing. You identify your data gaps and then you assign your data owners per department, and then you find your first output, you draft your first sustainability report. You include your governance, key metrics and targets, and then you publish and communicate your report to stakeholders. Please don't wait for perfection. and then you plan year 2 improvement and consider third party assurance. Now, my key takeaways: start imperfect, be material. Start imperfect. Don't wait to have everything before you start reporting. Progress over perfection. Don't forget that. Be material. Report on what actually matters to your business and stakeholders, not everything. They don't care about everything. So you need to really, really do a very good materiality assessment. Make it a process. So sustainability is not annual. You need to start building your data, your systems, the ownership right from January. Don't wait to December to now start looking for energy data, start calculating emissions and stuff. Make it a process-driven approach. And then we look at, you think audience, who are you reporting it for? For investors, for communities, you tailor the language accordingly. Avoid greenwashing. You back every claim with data, and then you use free resources. We have the GRI, we have the UN SDG, and then quality help exists at low cost. So thank you, everyone, and let's build credible, impactful sustainability reporting together. And I've said remember, sustainability reporting is not just compliance, it's a strategic tool for resilience, trust, and long-term value creation for Ghanaian and then the African businesses. Thank you very much.
Wow, we should be saying thank you. And I see a lot of thank yous, claps, hand thumbs up, love, emojis, Lydia, so much for this session. And I mean, we would have the open forum, but so many hands are up. So why don't we spend the next just 2 minutes taking at least one question for us to just have a quick response to, and then we have the last informative session and the rest is for us until we get tired. Right. And so team, just look out for at least one person to ask with a question because people are teething too much, so that we respond to it quickly. For that, any of us resource persons on the call will respond. And then we move on to the last session.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Deborah. I can see we have Preston on the line. So Preston, if you can unmute and go ahead with your question.
But if we have unmuting challenges, yeah, Prince, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Lydia, and everyone that has spoken. Okay, so I have this question. Supposing you have an organization, and we all know that materiality assessment, if I'm right, should be done earlier at the reporting year. It should be forward-looking. Now, in a situation where the organization does not have materiality assessment done, and you need to report for the previous year, though you are clamoring for the new year. So materiality assessment, can such materiality assessment done, for example, for 2026, be leveraged and used to report for 2025? Thank you. Is it advisable, and won't that sound as a greenwashing or something like that?
Okay. I didn't hear the question properly. Debbie, can you explain it? I didn't hear the question properly. You're talking about you not having a materiality assessment done, but you have to create a report, right? Something like that.
Yes, Lydia, the team would quickly answer the question and then we make progress.
Okay,
So
yes, so she was asking if the company does not have a materiality assessment. For instance, they don't have a materiality assessment for that year, can they still go ahead to report? If their materiality assessment is, say, for 2023, can they still go ahead to report for the coming year?
Oh, yes. For me, I think that you can. Your materiality assessment basically is about your impacts, things that are environmental issues that are significant to your operations. So if you're a manufacturing company that is maybe into, let me use plastic, a manufacturing company that is into maybe plastics, one of your material topics is going to be maybe your effluent discharge, because you are going to use water maybe to wash your plastics, whatever it is, right? So your materiality issues, they are basically things that are once your business is operating, whether you identified the material issues last year, 2 years ago, unless something has changed about your mode of operations, it will be the same topics. Nothing significant will change. So I'll say that you can go ahead and then create your report around it, unless maybe you can do another one to see whether something will significantly change. But I doubt if you've not had any business or if you've not done any changes to your existing operations, and I'm sure what you currently have can work.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much, Lydia. So Princeton, there you have it. Materiality assessments must not be conducted yearly. So if you have conducted some in recent, of course, you can use it, and it is advisable, my personal take, that you can redo it every 2 to 3 years if you anticipate or significant changes have occurred within your organization, so that you are keeping up to date and reporting on what is most material to you. There are still so many hands up. I would advise you leave your questions in the Q&A box. When the open forum starts, we'll make sure that you are given priority, or keep your hand up right after the next informative session. We will have you ask your questions. Thank you, Princeton. Thank you, Lydia. We would pause here on more of the open forum and then take the last informative session from the VP for Technical Development at Global Network for Zero, which is headquartered in the US, and it is a global net zero certification body. Now, this person has over 15 years of experience, and he has spearheaded the development of comprehensive net zero certification program. He is also developed a robust tool for GHG accounting, for measurements, for reporting, and as well as for tracking. And this person is no other person than Santosh Manavalan, operating from Riyadh, but driving impact across sectors and then globally. Santosh, if you're online, we'll take your quick informative session so that we can have the open forum where we ask all our questions, and at this point, we leave when we are tired. Thank you all for your active participation yet. There is also, as a quick information, there is also an open forum going on in the Q&A, so you can always be looking there and then contributing your suggestions or putting your questions there. The resource persons are answering as and when. Thank you. We'll take the session from Santosh now.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you. It's an enthusiastic evening.
Thank you so much for making time. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to meet you all guys finally, and it's an enthusiastic evening, and happy to be a part of this session. Kate has set the context beautifully, and Lydia's dig deep. So I think I'm going to summarize this, and being last to the party, I'll be sort of simplifying whatever has been already discussed, in a detailed way. Let me just share my screen. Yeah. So let me just start setting the context. Sustainability reporting is often seen as a compliance exercise, but we are witnessing what we are witnessing globally is a deeper shift. It's what I believe Kate has set the context. And reporting is now becoming a reflection of how organizations operate and how they manage risks, how they position themselves in the changing economic and climate landscapes. I'll connect this global shift into what we are beginning to see in the region. And I'm Santosh Manwalan. I'm an architect by qualification. I started my career with helping buildings to be energy efficient. Then from there, I moved into GHG accounting for buildings and organizations. Whereas at my present line of work, where we develop frameworks for buildings and organizations to get to net zero, to assess the emissions, and to help them put on a net zero track by working with partners is what I've been doing predominantly in the last couple of years. At present, as Deborah mentioned, I've been working in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, working with organizations in the kingdom, helping them to understand their environmental impact and helping them to put them on the track to net zero. So let's move on to the presentation. So what we are going to see now today is, rather than going into the frameworks and the technical detail, which has already been covered, I'll focus on the bigger picture. What is driving sustainability reporting globally? Why it is accelerating, and more importantly, what realistically it means for organizations and consultants, people like you and me, over the next few years. So the goal is to simplify the complex space and to make it actionable. So if we look globally, sectors like energy, infrastructure, supply chain, they account for a significant portion of environmental impact. But what is changing now is not just the impact, it is the visibility. Organizations are increasingly expected to understand and disclose. They are in scrutiny. And this is particularly for growing economies like Ghana. The visibility will become more important as the industries expand and integrate with global markets. So more business, more development means more exposure, and compliance, early compliance would mean more opportunities. So let's dwell deep on to understand what we have to do. I mean, what organizations have to do and what consultants have to do to keep up with this journey. So we already know this. Kate has summarized this beautifully. So uh, what we are seeing is an evolution, and it all started earlier with compliance, just meeting the regulations and standard. Then it moved into risk management. Today, it's moving into a much deeper and high value subject, that is an integrated sustainability into the strategy of the business. So the business has to adopt sustainability into their strategy, so that sustainability is not just a compliance, it becomes an attitude. It's reflected in the business strategy. So that is what the present ESG frameworks are realistically expecting the organizations to comply with, not just release a sustainability report, but to integrate sustainability into their business strategy. So reporting sits at this transition point where governance becomes structured, measurable, and impactful and transparent. So it's important to understand that organizations are managing far more than financial performance. Decade back, financial performance was only the key performance metric. Right now, energy use, emissions, water, workforce condition, we are at present sitting at an juncture, whereas energy and as well as associated emissions are at scrutiny. Specifically, for emerging developing countries like Ghana, sectors like mining, construction, and manufacturing are already experiencing this shift, especially when engaging with international investors and partners. So it's we are at a pivotal point. And one of the biggest misconception is that sustainability reporting is just producing a document. We already touched based on this. It's about integrating this, sustainability as a strategy in the business. In many cases, for first-time organization, they just attempt at reporting, but they actually discover the gaps, which we just saw. It was deeply discussed in the aspect of materiality. So it is not merely a report; it is an integrated management system which could, benefit the organization internally and as well as help them to put forth their message and their commitment globally. So globally, one of the most important realization has been around scope 3. So the emissions, what at my present line of work, I help organizations to simplify and to understand their emissions. So we all know that the emissions have been put across by GHG protocol into a simple way of looking at the emissions into as direct and indirect emissions. That is the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So uh, we have to understand the emissions first. Of course, I just listed what a scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 is predominantly is about for an organization, and the materiality assessment would reveal where they need to focus on. But for large manufacturing organizations, the scope 3 is the elephant in the room. That is the consumables, logistics, staff commute, waste, outsourced services, supply chain. This is the one major area which they are finding it difficult to manage, whereas the scope 1 and scope 2 are pretty much manageable for organization, whereas the scope 3 is challenging. So we have to understand the carbon boundaries. We have to understand the expectations and the reporting frameworks, and we have to, set the expectations right. But before we do that, we have to understand the levels of sustainability reporting. See, usually globally, what happens is it starts with the minimum compliance, then it moves to common practice, then it becomes the next level leadership. So that's what, if we observe the global trends, sustainability reporting follows a predictable pattern. It starts with voluntary efforts by early adopters, international players who ask their local counterparts to start this exercise and early on. Then it becomes an expectation driven by the investors of the markets. They push it, they're acting as a catalyst, and eventually it evolves into a regulatory framework. So um, I believe Lydia has detailedly mentioned about what Ghana is doing, and it's in its early stages of its curve, but the direction is very clear and strong. So to building on what Lydia just highlighted, at a global level, we are seeing sustainability frameworks like GRI, IFRS standards, and climate risk disclosures becoming integrated with the financial reporting. In Ghana, while what I understand is sustainability reporting is not yet mandatory across all sectors, but the direction is clearly emerging. So the driving factor is not just the regulation aspect. It is the expectations from the investors, financial institutions, and the international partners. We see that the early signals through the Ghana Stock Exchange and ESG guidelines and the sustainability banking principles is pretty promising. I would say this as a consultant, but as an organization, you may need to be concerned if at all you are not an early adopter. So it matters across all sectors. It is not just you are in a high impact sector. No, it's not like that. The shift matters because it directly affects business performance. Sustainability is no longer separate from the financial outcomes because it's for lack of words, they rightly identified it as non-financial disclosure. So it is closely connected with the financial aspect, but it is a non-financial disclosure. So the energy efficiency affects the costs. Supply chain risks affects the continuity in the business, and the ESG performance affects the access to the capital. And organizations that understands this early will have a clear advantage to strategize themselves and again to integrate sustainability into their business strategy. So the next few years, what we can foresee in Ghana and as well as in emerging countries, and we can expect an increasing pressure from multiple directions. That is, investors asking for ESG data, international partners requiring disclosures, and a gradual alignment with the global reporting practices. So this will not happen over time. It has to be accelerated. And the major barrier, to add on to what Lydia has been identifying, the major barrier, what we see is the barrier in terms of where do we start and whether it needs to be that complex. Can we simplify it? Can we make it easy? Can we make it accessible to all the players, even for an SME, small medium enterprise? So that is where we see that simplified, solutions, more of a checklist, more of an platform where you can easily load in your data, which can be assessed through uh, applications which are backed up with artificial intelligence, which can just give them an crisp, ESG-like compliance, which they can share with their global investors. And then moving forward, they can align with, the long-term best practices. So that's what organizations like what I have been associated with has been focusing all about. So one of the biggest challenges the organization faces is not just the reporting, but the data readiness. That's what I've been speaking right now. So sustainability data is often fragmented across departments, and we again and again require the same data in different formats. So the energy procurement, operations team, and they all have this data, but it is not being structured for sustainability reporting or for decision making, which is the ultimate goal of sustainability reporting. So building all this, we need an architecture, an internal data system, which is the real starting point of this. So going forward, I understand that if we break this barrier and make this as simple as possible, that is to meet them where they are, and to, as a consultant, if at all we are able to connect the dots, uh, receive the data from them as such, and not to bother them much, and to process it and to provide it to the reporting teams, to the frameworks, then it makes the job much easier. And that's the starting point. From there, we could build on. So supply chain, as I told you, the scope 3, that's where the sustainability become complex. An organization can manage their own operations well, but they may have limited visibility into their suppliers, especially for Ghana, where many industries are export linked. Global supply chain expectations from the global players, from the foreign players, will play a major role in accelerating the sustainability reporting. So we have to strengthen. I mean, they have the need, and we need the business, and we have to be in line to help them comply with their goals. So we need the data. We need to provide them the data in a much simpler and digestible way. So organizations typically don't start with reporting. They need not start with reporting. They can start with understanding their operations, collecting the data, and building the internal systems. So reporting comes later. It could come later, and it could be in a structured output based on the framework which is being expected. So the most important shift is in the thinking, especially for organizations that want to approach this strategically than reactively. So they can possibly, for organizations, I've just shared a 3-year roadmap. So there are several global frameworks, but the key point is the frameworks are just tools. They help to structure reporting, but they don't replace the need for the internal systems and data. Organizations should focus more into building their foundation first, rather than aligning with the framework. So they can just delve deep on the foundation and visibility, then move on to the structure, transparency, and then reporting. So this has been discussed in detail, and we need to align with these frameworks. And the foundation is GHG protocol and aligning with GRI, TCFD, based on what the expectation is, based on what which region you are associating your business with. So structured reporting leads to performance visibility. Performance visibility leads to transparency. And transparency is what is going to strengthen the institutional credibility. Alignment with the national sustainability priorities, and as well as the regional requirements will help the reporting to receive a much better recognition. If I have to simplify this into practical steps, organizations should start by measuring what they can and providing the data whatever they have, and consultants like us can help them to process it and then give it in an easy format, so that organization are setting out and signal that they are measuring what they can and understanding the emission and the resource use, and of course to build the internal process in the long term, in the midterm and as well as in the long term, so that we don't need to wait for the regulation, which may be usually too late. So organization can be an early adopter. So the implementation timeline I've just structured into 3 phases for organization, which has to be embraced by the consultants. So for the first couple of months, whenever you get to work with an organization, you can be on a diagnostic assessment mode. I would say, materiality light, data mapping, scope 1, scope 2 baselines, scope 3 screening. All of this, I would call it as a light materiality assessment. and then understanding their governance design, embracing it as such, followed by the forthcoming 6 months focus on embedding the ESG into their operations through policy adoption, helping them to integrate the key performance indicators and to sort of have an dashboard which could be deployed into their organization's KPI dashboards, which the leadership would be interested to see. And of course, work along with the suppliers. And the final phase is where preparing for a consolidated disclosure, I would say. So the year one is foundational stage. So which would create the visibility, which could prepare the organization for structured transparency. So I would say as consultants, our role is to work with organizations to pick up an implementation timeline. And this is not an one size fits all approach. And if, of course, if an organization is in a much accelerated requirement with respect to their reporting, expectations by their global players or by the financial institution they are associated with respect to the World Bank or the African Development Bank or any other, financial frameworks, any other financial expectations they may have with. They may, you may need to develop an accelerated phase for them, but this is for an, a new industry, new organization, which may not have such pressing force on them. We could go with this year one, year two, and year three approach. I would say that if at all we are able to get this done in the 0 to 24 months, that would be great. So that's what I'm trying to capture over here. As I mentioned, there's no one size fits all approach. You may need to adopt this. You may need to shrink this into a much accelerated phase to get to the expectations being met. So as Ghana continues to grow and align with the global economic and climate trends, sustainability will increasingly define how organizations are evaluated. The organization that succeed will not just be the one which adopt, but the one that anticipate. So early movers will definitely have the advantage, and we as consultants, we have the responsibility to ensure that we spread the message, to ensure that we we help the organizations who are associated with this to be ready with the ecosystem, to adopt with the global requirements. So anything which is not measured is not going to be managed. So the measurement is the first step. So let's start to help them put them on track. Organizations which are associated with this, to put this, put them on track, and to extract the data, whatever they have, rather than surprising them with new formats, and to use technology and artificial intelligence to the best of our interests. The best of the interest of the clients, and as well as the reporting frameworks, and process it, and to prepare it in a way so that it could be digested in the in terms of the requirements of the frameworks. So the framework alignment would be easy, and the organization might feel that they are not left out, and it is not a huge exercise. I'm just adding on to the point which just which was just detailedly mentioned by Lydia. So if that's been done, it would be promising for them, so they can scale up. So I see that there is a huge scope for us in the in the Middle East and the North African region. Looking forward, and let's embrace this opportunity and grow together. Thank you. Over to you, Deborah.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Santosh. Thank you so much. Now, 3 key things from Santosh. As I like you said, started by Kate and hammered on by Lydia. The point is that at least if you forget anything, don't forget that in the next couple of months, in the next couple of years, at least one, there will be pressure from multiple strategic points. Think of your investors, think of the markets that you are even exporting into, because the African market is also largely exports as much as we do imports. So your suppliers and then their needs, think about making it tenable, making sustainability tenable for SMEs. And that is something that we Cleanearth pride ourselves in. You just reach out to us, we support you. Also, the critical thing that has run through Kate, Lydia, and then Santosh is that early movers are the ones who would be able to unlock the value within sustainability, and late movers are just going to be reactive. Thank you all for the informative session. We are going to quickly go into the open forum because the hands are still very much up and will not take any more time. You can direct your question directly to myself, Lydia, Santosh, anyone, or any other resource person on the call, or you can ask it generally and our team would be assigning as and when. Thank you all so much. And now it's our turn.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for that. So like Deborah said, the question and answer session, we are going to take 3 questions from the participants, who have raised up their hands, and then we'll take at least 2 from the chat so that everybody can be heard and answered. Having said that, our first 3 questions can come from Preston, Gifty Owusu, and Joseph Caliber. So Preston, if you can hear me, kindly unmute and talk. Preston, you can unmute and share your thoughts, please. Okay, whilst we are waiting for Preston, Gifty Owusu, if you can hear me, you can go ahead, unmute and share your thoughts.
All right, thank you very much, Jifa and the team. I must recommend you guys for the wonderful presentation and the work that you are doing within the sustainability space. So basically for me, as my role is basically to drive sustainability within business. So I'm actually head of sustainability for Prudential Life Insurance Ghana. And once I was following the presentation, it was very fulfilling. And this is just an addition that I want to make. In terms of sustainability reporting for other professionals that are on the call today, it is very important that you get the buy-in from senior management and then also the board. So for us as a business, what we have done, we actually have a board chair who oversees and a board committee for sustainability, as well as management level, ESCO member committee that also oversee sustainability initiatives. So it's very, very much important that you have their buy-in. So once you have their buy-in from the high level, it makes it a bit easier to decentralize it to the rest of the staff, right? And just to share this with all of us. So as a business, for us, for the past 2 years, we've been able to do zero plastic. So what we do is that the business does not purchase plastics. So it's a policy that we have here. But so what we have also done is to have dispensers around. We sometimes give all staff bottles, refillable bottles to be using. But you realize that you still have some bit of challenges, okay? So it's very much important that you really have that engagement with your staff, right? Or the people, let's say the lower people, to really understand them. So last year, what I did was to really engage most of them. And one of the things that came out, somebody asked me a question that, how many times do we wash the dispensers? Okay, so in as much as a business, we are doing zero plastic, not purchasing plastic bottle, because when we have visitors, what we do is that we give them the Belapa glass bottle. So that's what we do. And for our visitors, we have paper cups that when they come, we give them. But for staff, for all of our 11 branches, we are supposed to use a refillable bottle. But you see, people still come in with their plastic bottle because their plastic water, because they feel like that dispensers are not being clean. Okay, so sometimes it's very important that you get close to them because people are very skeptical. You explain to them and then ensure that the necessary things are being done. One of also the pushback that I saw was that you have a lot of people. Sometimes, you know, the sustainability, climate, environmental staff, they're a bit technical, so you really need to break it down. Let people really see the real impact. It's very important. Once you explain the real impact to them, so although we've told them, do not bring plastics to the office, do this, do this, do this, but because they didn't understand the implications behind. So what I did beginning of this year, so I do what we call branch-on-branch sustainability training. So really to highlight the implications of the plastics, give them real life examples for them to really understand and appreciate the impact. So after the presentation, I had some questionnaires to ask, and then they themselves told me that because of A, B, and C, so then we are even going to be preachers of the gospel, telling other people not to do this and all that. So it's very important that behind everything that you are doing, you explain to them the basic fundamentals of why you are doing certain things for the people to appreciate better. If not, your work will be difficult, because once you engage and you tell them to do A, B, C, and D, and they do not understand the rationale behind it, they will always push back, and that will make your work difficult. So 2 things to leave everybody here with today is that it's very important that at the management level, board level, you have their you have their input, you have their backends to be able to drive the sustainability within operations, and then also get the buy-in of your staff or the lower, say the lower people, to also appreciate and understand the reason why the business is going or the business is choosing a certain trend. Yes. So let me end it here. I have a lot to say, but
okay.
I think it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gifty, also for your contribution. I will take another question or contribution from Joseph Kabala. Joseph, if you can hear me, kindly unmute and share. Joseph, if you can hear me, Joseph, yes, please. Can you go ahead?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I've been asking.
Joseph, if you're speaking, we can't hear you at the moment.
The sustainability report is released.
Joseph, your line is breaking a bit. Can you reposition yourself and come again?
Go here.
So I would have to, sorry, Joseph, I have muted you because your line is breaking a bit. So I would allow for you to come again. If you can reposition yourself and then we can hear you. Thank you. Kindly go ahead, Joseph.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is it clear now?
Yes, please, it's clear.
I can see my connection is okay this side.
Yes, Joseph, we can hear you, please.
All right, thank you. So I've been asking a question. I've seen the presentation from Lydia for reporting on 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And most of the time I can see in mining companies, they are releasing
Joseph, please, your line is breaking. Can you kindly write your question in the comment section and then I would read it out to everyone, if that's okay.
all right, doing it.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's move on to Nam Gamso. If you can hear me, kindly unmute. You can ask your question.
Thank you and good evening. Without repeating what our colleagues have said, my first question is, what is the difference between a framework and a standard And also for as an organization, do you have to use different types of standards or framework in one report, or you have to choose the one that is best suitable to your organization? And also with scope 3 emissions, what is the best method one that can look at to use to measure the scope 3 emissions? Because I find them to be very tricky compared to scope 1 and scope 2. Yeah, I think those are the two questions that I actually have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namgasu. Let's take a question from Gerald, then Gerald Chigambu, then we would answer, our panelists would answer the questions. Thank you.
Could it confirm you can hear me before I proceed?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. My name is Gerald Chigumbo, and I'm joining from Southern Africa, Zimbabwe to be precise. Thank you so much for this presentation, what a detailed, comprehensive session, and I really appreciate. So I have two questions. The first one is on disclosure. I want to find out what is recommended or the best practice for disclosing, for example, environmental performance when you don't have the actual metrics. For example, you want to report maybe on tons of waste that has been disposed or recycled, but you don't have maybe the actual tonnage, but maybe what we have is an assumption or just a figure, an estimate. Is it possible to disclose the figure that you are estimating, then put a disclosure, a statement to say that these are estimates, it's not an actual figure? That is my first question. Then my second question goes like this. I wanted to find out, especially in reporting your scope 1, scope 2, as far as emission factors is concerned. What's your take, especially on the view of using maybe EU or UK DEFRA or US EMA emission factors in African context, especially when you see that maybe some of the characteristics of fuel are different and also the energy mixers do differ? What's your recommendation on that aspect? Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your question. So the first question that has to do with, do we have to use different frameworks and standards in our reporting? If Lydia can answer that question for us. Hello, Lydia, if you can hear me, you can go ahead. Lydia, if you are speaking, we can't hear you, please. I can see you are unmuted, but
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? So the difference between a framework and a guidance, and a standard, right?
Yes, and if we can use different frameworks in our reporting.
Okay. So basically, I'll say that a standard is like a requirement that you are supposed to abide by, like it kind of provides a structure on how to go about a particular area. So let me use ISO because that is what we are more familiar with, instead of going with the reporting frameworks that are a bit technical if you've not really looked at the requirements. So for example, we have ISO 14001, right? Which is the environmental management standard, which is the environmental management system. So the ISO 14001 has what provides the standard requirements for organizations to be able to meet the requirements, to be able to, let's say, manage the environmental performance, right? So the standard, for example, when you take ISO has specific guidelines or has specific content of what your environmental management system should look like. So the standard typically says that typically states that, okay, for you to be able to have an environmental management system in place, for example, the first thing is that we need to know your context of your organization. So we start with, okay, what is your company about? Then we move on to the next. After you've identified your context, now we move on to the next. Okay, maybe the next is leadership and leadership, right? So after so it's like it gives you a structure, or it gives you it gives you, how do I explain it for you to understand? Like, it gives you like the structure of what your environmental management system should look like. So the standard is like, the standard is like a fixed step. It's like a fixed way of managing your, or of integrating an environmental management system into your operation. So the standard comes with, when we say something is standardized, it's because of consistency. We want to make sure that when it comes to environmental management system in Sweden, an environmental management system in Ghana, an environmental management system in Ethiopia, if all of these companies are saying that they are aligning to ISO, you will see consistency. You see consistency that, okay, Ethiopia followed the same standard. They started with their context of organization. They looked at their leadership. They looked at roles and responsibilities. They did this, they did that. It's the same standard requirement that every company is using. If you say you are going to align your environmental management system to ISO 14001, so that is the standard. Standard is like the standardization, there's consistency, there's a structure by which our environmental management system should look like, so that you will not have a company doing something else. Otherwise, how can we audit? We won't audit if we can't be able to effectively audit if there's no standardization. So that is why an auditor in Ghana can go to, can audit an organization in Togo based on their ISO 14001, because the standard they are using is the same. It's like the content they are using is the same. They are all going to abide by the 7 or the clauses, right? So they are all going to go through the context. They will go through they are going to use the same plan, do, check, and act cycle. So it's like step by step content, or I'll say that just see the standard like as a table of contents. Let me put it that way. I don't know if that can help you really kind of understand it. And then when we come to the guidance is actually providing you insights, more explanation as to how you can maybe identify your context, or how you can identify or put together a very good, let's say, context of organization. So the standard gives you like the content, right? Like, okay, maybe first you need to identify your context of organization, know your products, know your services, know your interested parties, know blah, blah, blah. That is what the standard is saying. Now the framework will now go further to tell you or give you examples as to what your internal issues can look like. Okay, some examples of internal issues are this. Some examples of external issues are this. Some examples of stakeholders are this. Some examples of needs and expectations are these. So that is kind of like the difference. The standard is more like the structure of how your reporting should look like, and the framework goes in deeper to give you like the more like the practical approach, or like the template, or gives you templates, gives you ideas for you to be able to implement or to align your EMS to the standard. I don't know whether there's that clarity between the two. If you understand this, then I can move on to the next question. The person who asked, do you have a bit of clarity between the difference between the standard and then the framework?
Namgam, so if you can respond, then okay, go ahead, Lydia, and just you can finish up.
Okay. So now that we understand that the standard is like the structure is to give us consistency among the gives us consistency when we say environmental management system in a place that align with ISO. There's a standard, there's a structure within which we are all operating, so that we can get the maximum value from our operations. And then the ISO 14004, which is the guidance, right, gives you more explanation and context and examples and templates so that you will not struggle. So when you are building your EMS, the 14,001 is the guide, is the provides the structure of what to go into your policy and things. Then the 14,004 will even give you an example of what a policy looks like so that you can also align it. So the 14,004 is like the framework. Okay, that's it. And if you say that, I think the other part is whether organizations can have standards and frameworks. The standard is already like your guiding principle that you are working with. So the standard is the guiding it's like the guiding principle that you are working with. And the framework really it's about what you are going to report, or it's about what you are going to report and how you are also going to report it. So I'll say that it really, when it comes to the frameworks that you are going to use, I think that it will be best for you to stick to one, because at the end of the day, they are all going to communicate the same, or they are all going to unless maybe you have the reason for your reporting. If you are reporting maybe to a certain level of, if you are reporting to a particular stakeholder, or you are reporting to some particular stakeholders and they have some expectations of you, you are going to align your sustainability report to suit what they are requesting from you.
Okay,
So
Lydia,
at the end of the day,
I will have to, sorry, I have to cut you a little bit here, but because of time, I would suggest that we continue in the chat. You can just continue with the explanation in the chat for us so that we can get as many people asking questions as possible. But I'm just hoping, I hope that, and I'm sure that her question has been answered. Yes, please. Moving on, the next question that was asked was, what's the best practice for disclosure? And is it possible to disclose the figure and say it's an estimated figure? I will throw that question to Deborah, if you can help us with the answer to that. What is the best practice for disclosures? And is it possible to disclose the figure and say it's estimated? Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that, Jifa. And to whoever asked the question, the short answer is yes. If you do not have exact figures, you're allowed to use estimations and approximations. You only have to be able to justify it transparently, because transparency is key and it is important. So it's important to mention what the estimations are. And our personal advisor, Cleanearth, is, as much as is practicable, you can even have an assurances and limitations section where you admit to some of your challenges, some of the limitations, and then assure for the credibility of whatever you have disclosed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah, for that. The next question was, what is the better method to use for scope 3 emissions or accounting? And I want to marry the two questions. Another question was, what is your view on the use of EU, UK, DEFRA, or US EPA emissions factors in African context, given that local fuel characteristics and energy mixes differ significantly? I'll take that again. What is the best method to use for scope 3 emissions or accounting? And what is your view on the use of UK or US EPA emission factors in African context, given that local fuel characteristics and energy mixes differ significantly? I would have Santosh answer this for us. Thank you.
Hi, yeah. See, there are three main methods to measure scope 3 emissions. First could be the spend-based method. We could use financial data. We could multiply by the emission factors. It is quick. it could be useful for establishing a baseline, but also it has this limitation, there is low accuracy. But however, this is we need some data to start with. So we could always start with the spend-based method. It would be pretty simple. The second way to measure the scope 3 would be about using an activity-based method, whereas we use the quantities from the suppliers when we can get the quantities from them, such as tons, kilometers, or units, and the industry-specific emission factors. So this improves the accuracy when compared to the spend-based method. And third is the most important aspect, that is ensuring that the suppliers provide much more accurate data. They integrate that within their KPIs, so that we can call that as a supplier specific method, which uses actual emission data from suppliers. This should be much more accurate, and it is considered as the best practice. So in terms of approach, we can say that we can typically start with spend based and move to the and complete baseline. Then we can move to the activity based data for key categories, and progressively have an supplier specific data which could be applicable for high impact areas. So it depends if at all you're for which aspect you are doing the scope 3. If that aspect is of a low impact, which you assess in the materiality, then you could probably stay with spend based or activity based. But it is of high impact, then it is better that sooner we move to the supplier specific method, which uses actual emission data from the suppliers. So on the same line, the other question with respect to using emission factors from global data sets such as DEFRA and other international databases, US EPA or anything for that matter. Yes, for the lack of local emission factors, these are credible, these are widely accepted, but the challenge is it's not fully representational, it's not local. It is not considering the local conditions such as the energy mix, supply chain, and the production efficiencies. So what we can possibly do for the lack of the local emission factors, we can use these global data sets, but we need to do an scenario modeling. So we need to look for directionally reliable baseline assessment. We need to improve the accuracy. So the key is to clearly document the assumption and to progressively improve the quality for the emission factors also. So what we can do, we can mitigate from these mitigate from these global emission factors from there. Um, the gap in the global emission factor that can be mitigated by migrating to the local emission factor by using the relevant proxy, such as selecting emission factors from similar regions, which may use a similar energy mix or industrial profile. So if not from one country, maybe from another country, maybe from another state in the same region, which may have a similar energy mix. And then we can apply a tiered approach so that we can improve the credibility. And however, see, there is no, we can even conduct a sensitivity analysis by applying an variation to understand the different scenarios. However, to be honest, there is no specific officially prescribed method for a margin of error factor or anything of that matter in GHG protocol or ISO 14064. So it depends on the consultant whom you are working with, how better they are able to convincingly compare similar regional data and then improve the transparency in a conservative assumption manner so that it happens as in continuous improvement. So over time, it has to improve to mitigate those gaps. So yeah, it's a very good question, but yeah, it depends on the consultant's role and it is very much possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Santos, for that. There's another question that is on ESG, and I would love Deborah to answer that for us. It says, how can ESG reporting reflect community level impact, especially when some of the outcomes are difficult to measure? And that's from Lorinda.
Okay, so hi, Lorinda, and anyone else. ESG reporting can reflect community level impact through what I call quantification by proxy. So in this case, for instance, this month alone, I have spoken to 2 different companies, and one of them, for instance, had built boreholes in different locations within and even beyond their catchments. And they were wondering, how would they quantify the impact of those boreholes? So, and they are a Ghanaian company, by the way. So then the quick trick to use is that you go on the Ghana the Ghana Statistical Service website. They have a comprehensive, up-to-date database for all the census that they have done, and especially the most recent one. And then you zoom in on the catchment within which you took or undertook these initiatives. You find out, let's say, the population. Okay, so then when you're doing your sustainability report, you can disaggregate as much as is practicable to you, but then you get the data on the people or the estimated number of beneficiary people within the communities from the Ghana Statistical Service website. And that becomes your also probable number of people or beneficiaries of your project. So that is one quick way to quantify what may have otherwise been non-quantifiable. Use proxy data. You can get those from national databases, from websites, from censuses. You can get it from reports, from scholarly articles. And then the goal is to make sure that you are mapping as accurately as possible and declaring them. And like we suggested in the early intervention, you provide assurances and limitations so that you still remain as transparent as possible. Another client had built about 4 e-waste centers. And so I remember telling them that you need to communicate the impact more than just the activity that you did, and they had the same concerns. So again, the way out is rather very simple. These e-waste centers, what is the capacity of the plant, of the facility? Now, you take the capacity of each facility. You take, again, if you want, you can take the catchment numbers for wherever each facility is. When you put these together, you realize that you are getting a good quantification of how much, whether it's you want to report the amount of e-waste that it will divert from open burning or from the landfill. You get an idea on how much you will do it, either it's per month, per year, per day, based on how you just want to report, because your plant would have a capacity per day, per month, or per year. And these are some of the very simple ways for you to quantify community level impact if you are not sure of what to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Deborah, for that input. I see that Seth Kwesing has a question. You can kindly go ahead, unmute and go ahead with your question. Seth Kwesing, if you can hear me, kindly go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think the explanation concerning the standard and the framework did not come too clear across to me. I want to continue to ask, can we say that the standard kind of describes what should be done, why it should be done, and frameworks show you how to do it? How to do what the standard is requiring you to produce, kind of.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. You've simplified it for me. Basically, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Because of time, we would be wrapping up, but if you have any questions that you want to ask, if you have any comments, anything that you want to share with us, you can kindly share via our email at sustainability@cleanearth.com. sustainability.com. We are also saying that if you want some form of roadmap as to how to go about your sustainability reporting, you can send us an email and we can help you out. Thank you so much to the speakers, Lydia, Santosh, Kate, Deborah. We are so grateful for your time. Thank you to the participants for joining. We had over 100+ people join this forum, and it has been an amazing discussion. We are very grateful. We would send emails of the recording and the slides to the participants. So just look out for an email from us. Check your spam, and we'll definitely keep in touch. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a nice evening.